Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Woodstock Regional Artists. I'm your host, Sal Miccio, coming to you from my home studio in West Early, New York. Along with David Lax, our producer engineer, at the controls, Studio A in Saugerties, New York. Tonight, we're going to deviate from our format. Tonight, we're going to honor an unbelievable, fantastic musician who left us suddenly last Saturday, August 1st. Tonight, we honor Ted Orr. Ted was my soul brother, and I miss him dearly. Instead of giving you secondhand information, we've invited James Orr, his son, to come on the show tonight to discuss his accomplishments and the past history of his music. Good evening, James, and thank you for coming on to the show.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here to represent the memory of my father and maybe express things that maybe people didn't know, like his family life and just the true beauty of him as a person.
That's great. That's what we want you here. That's what we want to hear. I know people say, "Hey, I know how you feel. I know how you feel," but they don't know how you feel. I have a similar situation, but I still can't feel what you feel. My dad died when he was 64 years old, the same age as your dad. And I said back then, boy, he died young. He never had a chance to really live his life. What the hell is going on here? Ted died young, although he was suffering. Everybody knew that behind that eye patch and that smile was a man who was devoted to his music and gave his heart in every note that he ever played. Ted started Blue Food with Junior Ellis many years ago. Tell us about that.
So he started Blue Food after Woodstock 94 when they played with Futu Futu. And he started it with Junior Ellis, who is the son of Alfred Pee Wee Ellis, who is the founder of funk music. Pee Wee Ellis wrote a lot of songs for James Brown, for Van Morrison, just a lot of these songs that we know is super popular, written by Pee Wee Ellis, the saxophone player. So his son, Junior Ellis, had rights to this music, and my dad asked Pee Wee if they could perform it. So they put together a serious power group and performed the music of Alfred Pee Wee Ellis throughout the years in Woodstock and the region.
And I had the pleasure of playing with them. One of my favorites was Pass the Peas.
Yeah.
And Ted, anytime I was there, Ted always played Pass the Peas, and I loved it for that. And then he started with us. I know Ted probably going back more than 25 years because the card game itself is over 25 years old, and we were both sitting at that card table in the beginning. So I know Ted more than 25 years, and we've been playing music together. I'm counting over 16 years, 11 years with Salted Pros. We played 3 years with Salted Bones. We played 2 years with a band we called Miccio Flambones. And that was back when we first started, when Tommy Wolf called us up here at the card game and talked to Bones and said, Bones hangs up the phone and says, "Okay, we're playing on Friday." So who's playing on Friday? There was a group called The Replacements, who the lead singer or lead player, the guitar player, whatever, had appendicitis. So they needed to replace The Replacements. And so Bones volunteered us, and we never played together at all. So I says, "Who are you talking about?" He says, "Well, me on drums and vocals, Ted on guitar, Jerry Mitnick on the bass and vocals, and you on harmonicas." So he says, "Well, if you want to do that, we'll do that." So we went on a Friday. The band was in where the bar is at Keegan. It's before the stage was even built in the back room. We got up there, and Ted said to me, "Listen, I know you're nervous, but just do this. Don't play when a person's singing. Lay back when a person's singing, and lay back when I'm doing any solos. And when it's time for you to get your solo in, come in like gangbusters," he says. He says, remember this phrase, less is more. And that's the man who put that phrase into my head, less is more. So, okay, we played a set. It was great. He puts his arm around me, calls me Maestro. He said, "It was great, Maestro. So we walk out. We walk out for a break, and four of us are standing around, and a guy comes up to us and says, "Hey, you guys are terrific! Wow, you're so tight. So how long you guys been playing together?" So Jerry Mitnick looks at his watch and he goes, about an hour." And the guy just shook his head and walked away. But Ted made me feel so comfortable back then. I knew that we had something together. I knew we had something in common. Besides the love of music, the love for each other.
Absolutely.
And boy, I really appreciate that in the years that followed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he also had a good band, power band. I love Shred, Thump, and Flow with Khaledi and Amit Shabir. They play some great music and well received at a number of different places. You photographed a lot of that stuff.
Yep. Photo, video,
No?
audio, everything.
You were there for a lot, weren't you?
I mean, I was my dad's biggest fan. So, like, yeah, there for all of it.
A lot of videos. You must have a lot of videos.
Definitely.
Great memories. Great memories. So I have his bio here. It says Ted Orr, guitarist, has performed and or recorded with many of the luminaries of funk and jazz and free jazz, including Sly Stone, George Clinton, the J.B. Horns, 420 Funk Mob, Carl Berger's Improvisers Creative Orchestra, and many others. That's quite a history of music for any one person. Tell us about him playing with George Clinton.
So, Clip Payne moved up to Woodstock a number of years ago and instantly developed a really strong friendship, close to a brotherhood with my dad. And once he heard my dad play, he invited him into playing with Parliament Funkadelic, of which Clip's been a member of for 30 plus years. So when George heard my dad play, his jaw hit the floor, bounced a few times. He walked over to my dad's amp, put the microphone up to the amp, pointing to him like, "Listen to this," riling up the whole audience. And from there, he's been kind of a go-to guest member anytime they were playing in the local area with Parliament Funkadelic. So after that, Clip formed the band, the 420 Funk Mob, which my dad was a founding member of. And George Clinton became a guest with that band for most of their shows, not all of them, but most of them. And so they just had a dynamic musical relationship and complete mutual admiration for each other.
That was fantastic. I had the pleasure of seeing George Clinton when he in Bearsville, on stage, in the main stage, and there must have been. I counted. I don't know how many people on stage, 18 people on stage or something like that. But there was Ted right there on the side, his spot with that poor Reed Smith just glittering in the light. And then George introduces Alana Orr, the Duchess of Funk. And Alana comes out and starts hitting those funky tunes to start that music up. And boy, I tell you, the chill went down my spine like it is going down right now. She really electrified that audience with that start. I love Alana's music, and I'm sorry she couldn't be here tonight. I did invite her, but she gracefully passed because of understandable reasons. So good luck to Alana, and let's just continue. Who's older, you or she?
She's like 3.5 years older.
And so did she start playing music before you?
We kind of started around the same time. My dad never forced music on us, but as soon as we expressed interest, he, piled on the opportunities. So when I was 5, I got a drum set for Christmas, and like the first thing I learned was Sly and the Family Stone, because I was 5 and it was my dad. Of course I was listening to Sly. But so as soon as I started playing drums, Alana got really into the idea too, and then she picked it up. And then when I was 12, she was like 15 or something, she got a bass. And then I started picking up bass and learned all the Hendrix tunes on bass and everything. And then when I was 15, I saw a Hendrix video and I was like, I want to do that. And so, of course, my dad taught me everything. The first thing I learned on guitar was the solo for Purple Haze.
Oh, really? What a great solo that is.
Yeah, man. I mean, he was really just never pushed it on us, but anytime we had a question or inspiration, he piled on the resources.
I know he was a good teacher. He taught me a lot too about phrasing and stuff like that. And originally, I didn't understand, but he took his time to make sure that I knew what he was talking about, and it helped me quite a bit. And even though I play harmonica, not a guitar, he knew how to he leave spaces and then come into spaces where you can, that type of thing. It was a great learning curve for me all the time I played with him.
Definitely. It seemed
Yeah.
like it was I saw a good video on Carl Berger where his teaching was hitting like a Tibetan gong and letting it ring out and listening for the space between the notes as the
Uh,
real focus. And so my dad taught me that from a pretty young age.
yeah. Good stuff to learn. Good stuff to learn. Sly and your family Stone. Your dad lived with him for a year or so. What was going on there?
So my childhood idol, Sly Stone, like I loved the music. And then I think it was like 1995, 96 or somewhere in there. Um, Sly flew my dad out to California, had him live at his mansion, and organizing all of his music that was scattered across like I don't know, dozens of hard drives, like a little piece of one song from this hard drive, the other piece on this other hard drive. And so my dad went and kind of sorted it all out and made sense of it all. And while he was there, they also recorded an album, and he played with Sly, and like my childhood hero. It was awesome.
Really? Can you imagine? And how long ago was that? That was quite a number of years ago, though, was it?
Yeah, about 25, 26 years ago,
Years
somewhere in
ago.
there.
Yeah. Um, Creative Music Studio with Carl Berger. I know somewhat about that. I know he was working on the archives recently, but how did it all come about and how did he get involved?
So it was about 1979 that my dad first started. And so what Creative Music Studio was back then was, musicians from all over the world who didn't even necessarily speak the same language, but they all came with the same intention of sharing their music and learning other people's music. And then there was master teachers who came in and taught the craft of, what they specifically did. And so my dad didn't really have the money for the tuition because he's a musician. So he went in as the cook. And so he was in the kitchen and he had all of the exposure to all the lessons and everything. He was a complete, part of the crew, like the real foundation of it all. And so that was 1979. I think it was around 1980 that my mom went to the Creative Music Studio for a dance workshop, and that's where she met my dad. And well,
There it
the
was.
rest is history.
Yeah, I remember your dad being an usher for Maria and Pete back 22 years ago. That was a great wedding, which I paid for, and but we had a great time. Some great music going on and so forth. So I think Jimmy Eppert was playing for us, so forth back then. That was 27 years ago, also.
Nice.
The Poor Reed Smith. Now, there's a story about this. Uh, Paul Reed Smith guitar was made for Carlos Santana and was given to your dad to play for what?
So
What?
my dad was playing a Super Bowl tailgate party, like the official tailgate party with George Clinton, and my mom had the idea of like, let's just try. So she wrote to the company, and they were like, yeah, actually, we just have this one that we just built for Santana. You can use it. Signed by Paul Reed Smith and everything. The whole works. It's amazing guitar. Practically plays itself. And
Yeah,
then after the show, they loved it so much. They're like, why don't you just hold on to it?
they got a lot of TV time on it, and so that was it. It's great.
Definitely.
What a great gift to receive,
Yeah.
and I'm sure he did it justice.
That's for sure.
It's so James. Why don't you just tell us anything else you'd like to at this point in time about your dad? And I think going forward, folks are going to be looking. I want them to look at your timeline, the uh, James Orr Productions timeline for anything that is officially coming out on events, and not look anyplace else for fake news, so to speak. So you'll please keep the events up on the James Orr Production timeline, and folks can go there and find out what is going on. So, could you mention anything that would be going on in the future right now?
So the easiest place to keep all of this information in a single hub is facebook.com/groups/Ted Orr Memorial, no spaces. So I made a group that way, people can just add in media stories and all this stuff that I'll eventually be editing into a piece that, I could show to his younger grandchildren who didn't really have the opportunity to experience the depth of his genius. So that's kind of one step going on. We'd like to set up some sort of a live stream concert where we can invite a number of bands that all want to honor his memory in a safe, COVID-19 style, safe way with no real audience, but just bands circulating through this live streamed environment. And kind of just having like an online tribute for the time being. Because my dad was a huge proponent of science. Hey, 214 countries have this pandemic. It's not political. It's very real. And a proponent of safety. So this would be in his honor that he would want it done in the safest way possible. He doesn't want to put his loved ones at risk. So that's right. That's the thinking there. And then beyond that, we're looking at maybe a plot at the Woodstock Artist Cemetery. And probably like a personal family service, small little gathering, and seeing what else people are inspired by. But those are the main initiatives.
Right. Well, if David and I can help you plan anything as far as music's concerned, you can call on us all the time. Because Ted and I were known as Benefits Are Us. So if you'd like to take his place there, we could be known as Benefits Are Us. So if you need any help, you have help right here.
I couldn't ask for better allies than this. My first gig when I was 7 years old was a benefit. I was playing drums with my dad. Yeah. And then, yeah.
Terrific. Would you have anything else you'd like to say before we close, James?
I mean, I have tons of personal history that I would love to share. Because everyone's seen like the public face, but what they don't know is, him behind the scenes. I mean, I could go all the way back. I remember like his lifestyle when I was a kid was awesome as a kid for me. He would work at night as the sound man for multiple clubs in Woodstock or gigging, and he would be home all day doing audio engineering from home. And he was a MIDI guitar pioneer, and very much so. He really developed MIDI guitar to be a viable instrument by working with companies to make the sound triggering very accurate and quick versus what it used to be before he entered the scene. So he would be working on sampling sounds, MIDI sounds all the time. He would take my sister and I, lay us on a little tarp in the living room and tickle us so he could get samples of us laughing. And it was just a really beautiful childhood that it's hard for people to know that. And he's always had that passion for just making kids laugh. Like him with his grandchildren was the most beautiful thing to ever see. Because like so many people saw his gruff exterior and like thought he was such a tough guy, but man, was he a sweetheart.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
Poppy was a sweetheart.
That's for sure.
Yeah, that's good. So before we leave, I would want to say that we have a fundraiser, GoFundMe, being created, and it will come up at the bottom of our screen at the end of this program. So folks, if want to help out and defray the cost of burial and so forth, go to that GoFundMe page and be as generous as you can. One thing I'd like to say before I sign off is I love the band very much. I'm going to miss him coming up those stairs. And I'll tell you now, if there is a rock and roll band in heaven, they just received one hell of a guitar player. God bless you, man. Thank you, and good night.